she was a fairy.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
I just pictured myself at 80 years old, just getting flashbacks to
It's a Delco ass accent. Perfect.
with a fatty on a to today's episode of Friends Living Well, because we are living.
We're living. This is a production of Full Living Wellness, which is Nikita's therapy practice that I happen to work at. We offer a lot of different things at our therapy practice, so go look us up online. Couples counseling, BCBA, parent coaching, social groups, bunch of stuff. We're licensed in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Florida, so we offer a wide range of services. Check us out. We're here. We're recording a podcast. Two therapists that happen to be best friends. I'm Kelsey. I'm a BCBA.
And I'm Nikita, a licensed clinical therapist.
Welcome. Let me get the disclaimer out of the way. I would love for us to have like a fun disclaimer, little edit.
Well, I do have that nice infographic that Nikita made us.
Oh yeah, maybe we'll throw that up. But yeah, disclaimer: casual conversation between best friends. We're gonna talk about a bunch of stuff. We just did an episode on I don't even know.
Some jiu-jitsu news and events.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu news and events. Talking about, women in jiu-jitsu and their experiences. So yeah, this is casual. This isn't therapy. We're not going to diagnose you. But if you're interested in therapy resources, you can certainly reach out. We have a ton of them. So yeah, welcome to the pod.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here. I'm going to get more of the housekeeping stuff out of the way. Really helpful if you comment, subscribe, you share our content, you tell people about us. Really, really helpful. We love doing this. This is something that we enjoy because we love to talk. We're professional yappers. In fact, we get paid to yap, but we get paid to yap and help people.
Yeah.
How'd
we luck out with that?
Which is awesome. Yeah, we're kind of lucky
Great.
in that respect. So yeah, if you could support us in any way that you can, that
seriously, it makes our day. Like when we have
Literally.
a comment from one of you guys, we message one another. We're like, "Did you see that comment from that person?"
Yeah, it's so sick. So yeah, we would really appreciate the support that we're already getting. The other thing that I didn't plug in our last episode is that we are both affiliates of Alchemized Fightwear.
Yes.
So if you're a woman who's a grappler, or even if you're just a woman who's looking for exercise gear that is high quality, made in the USA, flattering,
Yes.
cute,
Even just good loungewear. If you're just an athlete and you want really cute, high quality loungewear, I cannot speak any higher than their hoodies.
Yeah, we both have promo codes through them. So I believe yours is it Nikita 10 and mine is Kels 10. So you can save some money, and I believe that they do sales occasionally. They're doing a Mother's Day sale right now because we're filming this the weekend of Mother's Day. So yeah, that would be great. You can support us in that way as well. We get a little kickback if you guys do that. We get a little kickback, and that's really, really meaningful for us. So yeah, that's all of that out of the way.
It is. On to the topic of the day.
On to the topic of the day.
We've been so excited all week to talk about this one. We've been trying to avoid the conversation in order. You got to scooch on over.
Yeah, I was getting a little too relaxed. This I don't know why.
Just half your head hanging out of the shot. But yeah, we've been trying to avoid this conversation.
I'm trying not to move because listen.
Don't avoid that. They like that noise.
Yeah, it's totally the chair.
All right.
Feet aren't the only thing that make money out there.
My feet are also not touching the ground, so that tells you how short I am. Nikita's feet could touch the ground, but her tootsies are up.
I'm crisscross applesauce.
Okay, so on our last episode, we talked a lot about sexuality, views on women. There were some themes there.
Definitely some themes there. How do you hold relationships?
Yeah. Which I think is so funny. I don't know why that segues into this, but it does. I don't know how I don't think we planned it that way. I think it
Definitely
just kind of happened.
Didn't plan it.
But yeah, it kind of segues into more stuff that people are talking about right now.
Yes.
Which is Adolescence. It's a Netflix series. It's 4 episodes.
Yep.
And we heard people talking about it. There's been a lot of discussion on the internet about Adolescence.
Yes, I had a few clients. Those of you that recommended it, thank you. You guys always recommend me the best shows in TV.
I was like, how did she know? And she was like, my clients recommended it. I was like, oh, that's sick.
It's
like,
always the best. It has been years since I have had to look up anything because I'll just be like, what are you watching? What are you liking?
Yeah, we actually started doing that in social group. We started doing like a weekly, like, what are you listening to? What are you watching? Or like favorite movies, things like that. So I definitely brought it up. Nobody in social group had seen it. So I would be interested to see if they end up watching it. Right. Yeah, so multiple people like recommended this to us. I think it's really interesting to have kind of 2 like therapist takes on some of these like very highly complex like psychological kind of like drama series.
Absolutely.
Which is what I would categorize this as. So if you haven't seen the series, obviously we're going to spoil it. We're going to talk about all of it.
Spoiler alert.
So like pause.
If you have not
go
seen
watch it. You'll be able to binge it in a day because it's that good. You're going to want to know what happens.
And that's another thing about it. The storyline is never a secret throughout any of this. I saw a few comments that I thought were pretty interesting about the show afterwards where people were like, did he really do it? And I was like, guys, the storyline was not at all hidden or mysterious. I think that was actually part of the entire way they did it.
I think... Okay, I don't want to get into it too soon because I want to give an overview for, like, I want to give, like, a brief intro of what the series is about. So basically, and I don't know, do you want to give an intro about the series or do you want me to just kind of
wing it? It sounds like you've already been kind of, thinking of it and all. I don't know.
A bit. I don't know. I kind of feel like I take the reins by accident when we're doing some of these things where I'm just like, let's just go. So... Basically, this series is about a 13-year-old boy who is accused of murdering one of his classmates. And it basically really takes a look at, I want to almost say, the fallout of accusation and then being, like, thrust into the criminal justice system. He engaged in he did this thing. And it really takes a look at the fallout of it. It's one of the cool things about the series is that I think that, didn't you tell me that it was all done in one shot?
One continuous shot.
I
don't know any other movies, films that have done that. Especially what really impressed me is there's one scene where they go through a parking lot. So they actually use a drone at one point to go from the school shot. Because when I was told that, I was like, how did they do this one shot where and they literally take a drone and fly it over the parking lot to where the scene is still occurring on the other side of the school.
And it gives this very lived in feel. It really makes you feel like you are in it and experiencing it with the people that, like,
at their
as
pace.
It's happening, it feels like you're experiencing it with the people in it. I think if I were to think of another movie that did it, I believe that, and I don't know I don't think the whole movie was shot like this, but I feel like they did some continuous shots in, like, The Lighthouse with Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe.
Okay.
Remember the war movie we watched, 1917?
Yes, that was continuous, wasn't it?
One long continuous shot.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that is also, like, just to talk about kind of like the editing or just like the way that it makes it feel. And I really love that they did this because it feels, it allows you to feel and experience the discomfort and the grief and the unknown with them.
I'm so glad you used that word, grief, because that's...
there's so many themes of grief in it. I wrote a lot of notes on it, so I'm going to be looking at my phone for it, but I feel like when they do these continuous shots and it's lived in and nothing's hurried, there's no rush. It's not like a drama in which it's like action, plot point, relationship, action, plot point. It's literally like, it feels like it's happening live, and they're just along for the ride.
That's why when you said grief, it really stood out to me, because that's something that is always, I think we even just posted a lot about this on grief, was something that's always been so unfair to me in my grief experience, and I know that others have this too, is that the world just keeps fucking going on. Yes. Your whole world stops and falls apart, and it feels, because it does, it's completely changed.
Yeah.
And then you watch the world around you just continue at its own pace as it has been, like nothing happened, which is such an affront to you when you're in such a stage of grief. And I think that's where it's not rushed in the show at all, but there is this continuous pace, because that's what life pushes upon you. Yes. We are not stopping just because you are overwhelmed or you're trying to collect your thoughts. We are going on to the next thing, and you feel that.
The more you watch it, like by the time you get to episode 4, it feels heavier. Yeah. It feels like you're carrying it with them.
Especially that last one, because it's all about the family's aftermath.
I think, yeah. And so I feel like it would maybe make sense to try and talk about it episode by episode, so we can kind of go in order. I don't want to jump around too much. But I'm really excited that we're doing this, because like I wish that I had more time to like dedicate to just like watching film and just consuming film, because it's something that I really enjoy and I really like talking about.
Same.
And I don't know anybody that likes to talk about it. The one person that I knew that did talk about it, we're not friends anymore. It's so sad. I would love, I want to, and not just like with themes of like therapy or psychology or anything like that. Like, I just want to watch fucking awesome films. I want to watch like stuff from the 70s with subtitles, and like
just what it makes you think of.
Yes, I love that. I'm a person that is very impacted by film. I have a very visceral memory of me as a child, and I think that this was a formative point for me that made me want to work with people with like social learning differences, because I watched the movie Radio. Yes. With Cuba Gooding Jr. Yeah. And there's a scene in Radio where they lock him in the shed. And I mean, I was a child. I don't know what year it came out, but I remember I'm so empathetic. I was affected by that for days. Like, I was so disturbed by that, and I had this like deep sense of like sadness that I couldn't articulate
because of that story.
And I didn't understand. I was like, why am I so upset? And like, I couldn't tell people. And I don't think I've ever talked about this actually before, but I was so moved by that, and I was so deeply saddened by that, but I couldn't articulate it. And I didn't understand why. And so I'm a person that like, I love film and I love watching those things.
Oh yeah, it's our stories, and that's what helps us process one another. I mean, that's so rooted to your work, is seeing people ostracized and just put in devastating isolation because they're not understood.
I think it's the lack of understanding, and like I that's such a big driver for me. That is such a pillar of like who I am and the work that I do, is like understanding that it is not bad or wrong to be neurodivergent or have, social learning differences. Like, we just need to understand it more. Right. I need to take the time. So so that's just like a little bit of a segue, but I really love film. I've actually right now I'm watching The Pit. I don't know if you've heard about The Pit. It's actually a medical drama. And I love medical dramas, but this one is actually very well written.
I've literally had to pull her out of Grey's Anatomy and been like, you are not in a mental state where you can tolerate this show.
If I'm watching Grey's Anatomy, I'm in a bad place.
It's not good.
So like, it's not Grey's Anatomy. So what's cool about The Pit, one, it's set in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. One of the main actors in it is I fucking can't remember his name, from ER. He played one of he was one of the main actors in ER.
Damn, he just brought his scrubs right over.
For real. He probably had them packed away. I was like, I'm never taking these out again. But so it's 15 episodes, and each episode is set in 1 hour increments on one shift.
Okay.
in the ER.
Interesting.
And it's post-COVID. And this guy who was like one of the main characters who plays Dr. Robbie, he talks about how he was so impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and he heard about how impacted medical personnel, and he wanted to tell those stories. And so part of the prep that they did for the show is they actually shadowed real shifts in the ER
Good
to
idea.
understand. So a lot of medical professionals have actually watched this and said, wow, this is actually the most similar that I've seen to like what it really looks like.
Yeah.
But the reason why I like it so much is because they include so many relevant themes of what it is like to work in healthcare. And I don't know how they're doing it. I'm like, I've watched 10 episodes so far, and I can't believe all the things that they've hit on. They've hit on like, lack of access to equitable care. They've talked about dynamics of being like a person of color and getting medical care. They've talked about like nursing shortages, the abuse that nursing staff receives.
So this is all about like giving a voice to these.
Oh my gosh, it's incredible. I mean, there's so many themes here of what it's like to like work in a medical setting, and I just am so impressed by it. And it's really well written and it's really well acted.
We'll take that.
So I just really like it. So the more I can talk about
Another
this stuff,
recommendation.
another recommendation. So yeah, let's dive into Adolescence. Yeah, I think there's so much to unpack here.
Yes. Yeah.
So much to unpack.
And it's overwhelming too when it starts. I guess that's how they get you into the show is I mean, it opens with that scene with the detective, which I also found really interesting how that...
Yeah, and it's funny because the more I watched it, and then the detective kind of like faded from view, like they wasn't as active of a part of it anymore.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, I almost didn't notice. Like it was like they were there and they were so pivotal. And then all of a sudden it's like they're back in the background.
Yeah. There's a whole... thought I have around that because I told you I rewatched it because when it first came out I had watched it, which was a while ago now, and then I rewatched it just before this so that way, and I had noticed that relationship really mirrored what to me felt like the overarching lesson of the show.
Yeah, tell me.
I was like, should we even like dive in that
No,
deep
I want to know because I the first 2 episodes are the ones that are the most fuzzy for me because I took more notes on 3 and 4.
Okay, and I can't remember if this happened in 3 or 4, but it's like it starts with the detective getting that phone call from the son. Do you remember? And the opening scene is him listening to the voicemail and laughing about it with his partner of his son who is at the school that a lot of stuff will happen at.
Yeah.
Wanting to not be there and him kind of like laughing about it. And then we see a lot of scenes where the son is making comments about like, well, if you just want to go to the gym, just go to the gym. And I'm sure you've got work to do and you're not going to be here. So it's voicing a lot of this, like, you're not there, you're not listening, you're not understanding me, and you don't want to be. And it's clear to me. And I just found that so fascinating because you see the detective really grapple with the reality of why he is seeing this murder occur. And it bounced to me, and there were 2 scenes where I was like, oh, I feel like this detective is highlighting like the message overall. One was when he's talking to the history teacher. I don't know, what's the main character's name? That's going to drive me.
Oh my gosh, I can't even remember because I've just got so lost in the details.
I want to say Jamie, but I can't.
Tom Alderson, our producer extraordinaire, will look it up for us.
What was the main character's
name? Jamie? Yeah.
I remember Jamie saying his favorite class was history class, right?
Yeah.
And so then later they show the detective talking to the history class teacher. And what this guy does is just put on a movie or something for them. He doesn't teach the class at all. And so I thought that was so interesting that Jamie was like, oh, that's my favorite class. It's the one where the teacher doesn't care.
It's one where we're the least engaged.
Exactly.
Like, it's the one where I'm the most disconnected from everybody else.
Yeah. And the professor, the teacher says to the detective, like, these kids are impossible. What do you expect of me? And so it's such a message of, again, of the way that, like, the adults are just
Yeah.
like, we've already given up on these kids.
Yeah.
And then,
I think the relationship between the detective and his son, like, shows how, like, precarious it is. Like, that relationship. Like, it could go somewhere else. Like, something bad could happen.
could have happened.
Could
if
have
this
happened if dad did not.
Get the message.
Right. I think it shows you how fragile children are and, like, teenagers in that time.
Right? I think that's what the whole point of this entire series is about.
Yeah.
But I thought that was really interesting because the last scene that the detective is in that I, like, really remember is with the son, and it's the end of the
Yes.
day after you can tell the detective has learned the totality of the story. He now understands the message. And he says to his son, I have some extra time. I want to spend it with you.
Yes.
And the son lets his guard down for a minute because at first he was like defiant. He was like, I don't want to spend any time. And then his father says that to him, I want to spend it with you. And he goes, okay, I've got some time. And that's how and that's the last
he
of
fades
them.
from view. Yeah.
And it felt like that whole message he was like, I get it. I'm not going to ignore him.
Yes. And I, again, like, I don't even know if I really realized that was the purpose of that relationship until you kind of summed it up for me. But it prompted that thought of, like, you have to be aware and you have to be present in the relationship, because that is something that they talk about. And it's funny, I read a book that had similar themes. I read,
Really?
I think it was Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, and the son is accused of murder. It might be the other book. There's 2 Gillian Flynn books. It doesn't matter.
One of them.
He's accused of murder, and the mom was fighting to engage this son. He was always in his room. He was always talking on the phone. He was listening to, like, rock music. He was cutting his hair. He was dyeing his hair. And he felt so far away from me, but he was in his room the whole time. And that's what they, you know, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but that is something that the parents comment on, of, like, how did he get here? Like, he was in our house.
Exactly.
He was in our house. And so I think, like, if I were to look at my notes of, like, what I wrote down about episode 1, I think you had used the word, like, overwhelming. The first 2 words that I came to mind was abrupt and shock.
Right.
And I wrote processing in real time, but there's no real information available. So it's like, boom, SWAT team in the house, get on your knees. And what struck me so much about the first episode and the second episode was how childlike Jamie seems.
Oh, yes.
I think that
Terrified.
crying,
Pees his pants.
cries for his parents like he's not 13, right? He's a baby, because he just doesn't understand what's going on. And you know, it's shock. There's no information. You know, and dad is there, and dad is this steadfast.
Yes. I love the father's character throughout. I forget what that actor's name is. You might want to. He's one of those characters or actors too that I've seen him, and I didn't realize that I've seen him in a million things.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's just been underrated, and I didn't realize until this specific show that really highlights him.
Is that Eddie?
The dad?
The dad character.
Dad of Jamie.
Damn it.
I want to say his first name is Steven something.
Stephen Graham?
Stephen Graham, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the actor's name is Eddie Miller.
Okay, yes. Okay, so his character's name is Eddie Miller, but the actor's name is Stephen Graham.
Yeah, he was such he felt so real to me. He really felt like a dad. Like, it was this steadfastness. It was this, like, he was very resolute, and he was there.
He's trying to take care of everybody. That opening scene when they storm the house, he's so bewildered and has no idea what is happening, and yet is trying to say to everybody, you're all right, love, everything's okay, and I'm going to take care of it. And he's just to everybody trying to do that. And I think that's what felt so fatherly is even though he's a man that is so lost in that moment himself, he's trying to stay a strong leader and I'll take care of it and I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Oh, and you just see him and they're like giving him no answers, no time.
And yeah, it's there's no answers. He's just there and he's just taking everything on the chin, and it's like he can't emote. The only emotion he can show is like steadfast reassurance. At least for the first 2 episodes. He because again, it's like you're processing in real time. There's no space. We're surviving here, right? There's no feelings of grief. There's no it's just we're here and we're now.
Yeah.
And we're going.
And they're at this point too certain that this has to be a mistake. That there's nothing could have actually been wrong or to grieve about. This must be a grave error in some way.
Yes. And I think the other thing too that really as you're processing it in real time, he gets booked. He goes, has to sit by himself in the cell. He hasn't had breakfast, and then he has to go to the nurse and he has to get his blood drawn, which I thought was hindsight, as a true crime person, I'm just they had a warrant and that warrant must have involved DNA somehow. That they just take his blood without whatever and he's afraid of needles.
I think that's why they really highlighted that and did that because of speaking of irony in that, to be afraid of a needle prick from getting your blood drawn, but then to be accused of, I think he stabbed her 8 times or 7 times with a butcher knife.
And the funny thing about this is we don't even really know what the crime looked like until midway through the first episode. So we know he's accused of a crime. We know there's a girl that's dead.
Yes.
But we don't know the brutality of the crime. Yeah. But what we're seeing is this child crying for his parents, peeing his pants, and then expressing fear about a pinprick, a needle, and not wanting to do it, and needing encouragement, and there's the nurse is acting motherly, even to him through this process, so they're showing him such compassion,
and he's receiving of it too, which is I think what also makes him feel so childlike in those moments is he's very willing to accept the comfort and
I think that's the really hard part about understanding crimes in adolescence, right? It's shocking because it's just not something you expect, and so you see him in this childlike state of fear, and then he sits down and he's getting interrogated.
Can I ask you one thing too before we move on to that? Did it at all stand out to you, or throughout the whole not movie but series, as he keeps saying, I didn't do anything wrong? I wasn't sure if that hit your ear.
I literally wrote that down. I literally have it as a quote written. I didn't do anything wrong. There's continual denial. And this is something, I know this is jumping ahead. No one of his family in the entire series, I don't know if you noticed this, ever talks about his guilt.
No.
They never talk about his guilt the entire time. There's no if he did it.
Not until the very end,
not until
4.
the very end, and I think that's really, really interesting, and I think we can unpack that when we get to the last episode recap.
And if you hear a 4-wheeler in the background, it's a sunny day here in Delco.
Yeah, Delco's just people bitches be acting
Let's go,
out.
baby.
I'm let me therapize, let me analyze this shit. Get off your 4-wheeler, and I hope you're wearing a helmet. Anyway, the continual denial's crazy.
Yeah.
But they sit down, he goes through the booking, he goes whatever, they get assigned a public defender. The public defender, again, it's this lack of information. It's just no information. He's just I'm going to read what they give me, and I will let you know what happens. And then apparently the cops sit down with him, and he's this is all that you're going to give me? And they're yep. And he's okay, here I go.
Which is just such a show of systems, right? That's what it feels like. Is it's this well ingrained, established system that is impossible for you to change, and so then you end up just going with the flow of it, even though half of it makes sense, half of it doesn't make any sense.
And also, like, I think as they're processing in real time, like, it's I can't imagine what it's like. They probably have no memory of even talking to this man or understanding what they're agreeing to. Because it's all just happening so fast, they don't even know what the fuck it happened anyway, right? So they don't know. They know a girl's dead. Certainly, it must be a mistake. Jamie's denying it. He's very childlike. And then they sit him in the interrogation room. You know, he's doing his no comment, like the lawyer's coaching him to do. You know, so he understands enough to when to do that, right? He seems to be very smart in that way.
Which is an interesting thing. He does have this, like, tude and attitude that comes out at other times. As childlike as he can be, in some moments, he is this very defiant, I will show you attitude.
I would say, like, very, like, egotistical, like he's trying to show his power. Like, he's trying to demean and belittle, in a way that only teenagers really can do, right? So, yeah, I mean, but then they're sitting there, right? They're sitting there with the interrogators, the detective, and they show the video.
Yes.
And Dad sees the video.
Yes.
And
that's another shocking part, too, because I didn't anticipate that that's what they were going to do in that moment, was go from kind of throwing questions at him and then why do we see you on tape here and these are the same Jordans you're wearing, to boom, here's the video and we see you stabbing, and it is a clear, this is not a hidden, I can't make out who it is a clear shot of him standing in the parking lot. I believe it's like a back and forth where
there's
at first,
a bit of a confrontation.
Yeah, at first, like, she pushes him, and then afterwards he attacks her and then obviously kills her.
And the question the detectives were asking was, why were you following her?
Yes.
Right? So I can't remember if there was a conversation that they would be meeting up or not, but it appeared as if he followed her.
I remember, and I don't know if this is what you mean, but the detective was really, and I thought this was so cute, the detective was really confused about the emoji lingo.
Oh, right.
And so he thought that they were friends or flirting.
Oh, okay, right. They didn't actually meet up. No, he followed her to kill her.
Yes, and what he found out from his son at the school was that the lingo, the symbols that they were using were actually like hate, like being like, I hate you, or you're an incel.
Yeah, you're an incel and all this stuff.
So
which adds such another layer to this that I wasn't expecting.
Exactly. It's a whole language.
It is. Yeah. So the video is literally, and they're leading up to it. They're like throwing pictures on the table. They're like, we have you here. We have you there. You're following her. Why would you be following her? It seems like you're friends. You comment on each other's Instagram posts, blah, 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 blah. And then they show the video. And it's irrefutable evidence that he murdered her. And I don't think you really get Dad's reaction, right? There's not a reaction from Dad, or does it cut away? I can't remember.
Dad had a huge reaction to me.
Did he? Okay, I can't remember.
This is another, like, I feel like segue I'm going to get into of, you know me, I always go like a little too freaking far into things.
Get in it.
But that was like another, they talk about it later on when in the psychologist episode.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about that episode. That episode got me going.
Right, when she's like she's trying to get him to talk about like masculinity and his dad and all of that kind of stuff, and it didn't hit me until that episode. And then I went back and I watched where it's this shame response that the dad has, where that's what felt so strong. The dad literally like shuts down and then fully turns away from Jamie.
Oh, yes, he does. But yes, it's not the reaction. I bet. I think it's not the reaction I expected him to have, perhaps. The reason why it stood out to me was because it's the same thing that he highlights about being an athlete. And the shame and rejection that Dad
that's what
responded
really
to him with in another situation.
Yeah.
That's
when it really hit me. I was like, oh, that's a much bigger.
Damn, I should have rewatched this. I probably would have picked up on way more themes.
Because when you go back, right, like there's the set, you know the story, so you start to pick up the symbolism of things a little bit more. And I had wondered if they very purposefully had done that, have him have the same response to that.
I bet you, because that was like one of the formative moments in episode 3 where she's finally getting him to actually talk about like masculinity and stuff. Well, I think we can graze over episode 2 because I to me there wasn't a lot of like bulk to go through it with episode 2 besides the fact that this is all like reconnaissance by the detectives. Like they're in the school, they're doing interviews, they're trying to find the knife. They figure out that like what the emojis mean.
Yeah.
So and the detective's son plays a huge role.
And also, I don't know if I'm like just making myself aging myself a lot, but something that really stood out to me about that was that school felt so, there was just such a sense of bullying and everybody was out to get themselves. And I mean, I hated high school. Like I don't have fond memories of my high school, certainly not friendly ones.
It's not good now. It's worse now.
Okay. Yeah. Cause I think
that's, I don't want to normalize it, but I do think that it is quite common for that type, because like I can tell you of like at least 5 instances. I can tell you of one specific instance in which I broke up a fight between 2 girls in 5th grade.
Yeah.
One commented something on her Instagram post talking about her dead grandmother, and they were fighting in the hallway.
Yeah.
And mom came in screaming, and like it was a whole thing.
It just seemed like such a, and I didn't know if that was like maybe just an amp up for the but it felt like, I was like, wow, you guys are, there's no sense of these are my classmates or we're friends here. It was very much like everybody here is my enemy and we all hurt one another, whether that's making fun of each other directly to our faces or online. It is just constantly we are against one another.
I think it's very much kind of like speaking and setting the tone for kind of like this like incel culture type conversation that starts coming through, because part of the evidence against Jamie is that like he's having these interactions with her online, and they're noticing that he likes all of these photos online of like beautiful women that like happen to look similar, you know, like not like supermodels and things like that. So he's engaging with kind of like sexualized imagery of women. You know, Katie's commenting on his stuff, and there's these emojis, and like, you know, the detectives are like, okay, you guys are clearly friends. And then, you know, he's going and investigating in the school, and the son pulls him into a closet and basically was like, so you're dumb. I'm gonna tell you what it actually is like. And it's basically these emojis are like indicating like that he is a part of a group of people that people are calling incels, and so he's believed to be an incel at 13 and now has this reputation. And I think that that's, to speak to your point, it makes me wonder, like, what did he do previously, or what was he saying to people to get that reputation, or was that a part of like this culture that's happening here? I don't think you can remove the two from each other. I think that they're interrelated in some ways.
I had wondered too how much of that was because in the show they say that Katie was the one that called him an incel. Like that's what the symbols were. But then in the episode with the psychiatrist, when he's talking about himself, he says that I'm ugly, and he references the 80-20 scenario where he just assumes and figures there's something innately wrong with him, which is why he is ugly and not attractive, and that's why no female has liked him or seen him in that way before. And so I had wondered, like, how much of that is him identifying?
I don't know. I think that a lot of it is probably him. I think that it's easy. Everybody at 13 feels ugly.
Right? You definitely don't feel comfortable in your own skin.
You don't feel comfortable in your own skin. You don't like yourself. You probably don't like your family members at one point or another. You know, and I think that those are a lot of themes that most 13-year-olds would identify with. So again, it's like kind of that question of like, But how does it get past that? Like, why does it go so far, right? Because he clearly doesn't feel good about himself. But he finds identity and community within this community of people that happen to be incels. So I think it's really interesting. I think the other thing that was very poignant in that episode, which we didn't really get a lot of follow-up on, if I remember correctly, was like, but his friend gave him the knife.
Yeah.
His friend Ryan runs from the cops.
Yeah.
Gets and I think he gets booked as like
accomplice
to the crime because he gives the knife to Jamie.
And even in that, to the point, because that's what made me start to question. I was like, oh, this isn't like, because there are those online groups that identify themselves as, we are incels, we hate women, and like we will talk to one another about planning hate crimes against women.
Sure.
This, I almost got like, oh, Jamie was labeled as an incel because he's an awkward teenager who feels like an outsider, and him and his two other friends who also are, one who was made fun of for being poor and the other one was made fun of for being dumb.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so they're all on the outside. Maybe they don't even identify as this thing. They're just like the outsiders, and we only have, it's the three of us. We're the pack. Like, we have each other.
Yeah, and I think too, it's also like speaks to, and this is just something that I don't know how else to describe it, but like working with children and working in an educational sense in the recent years, there just seems to be this lack of empathy
for one another.
Yes, that is just, it's so hard to describe. It just seems there's just this kind of like casualness in which people treat other people like they're not real. Like they feel so disconnected. Like they feel so disconnected from each other because there's not empathy and there's not perspective taking in a lot of cases. And again, I don't want to make generalities, but it's just something that I've noticed that I've been kind of disturbed by, that I've worked with some children, and because I worked in middle schools and high schools and elementary schools, and it just seems to be like this lack of care for others. And I don't know. I think internet culture plays into that a lot.
That's why I had mentioned that dichotomy thing, because as you're saying that, I'm wondering, if that's exactly what you're talking about. What does that splitting do? Does it make it easier to be ever empathetic to one another?
You're just a thing on a screen.
Yeah,
you're not real.
It's like children are treating one another like they're just profiles.
Yeah.
Right.
Like they're scrolling past each other.
Yes,
but they're in real life.
Exactly.
And that's how easy it is. I just scroll past you.
Right. Because you're not
you're
not real, and you don't need anything more or deserve anything more. Neither do I.
And even to engage with you, I just
like
this thing, and that's my engagement with you. That's how much effort I had to put into liked, double-clicked.
Everybody go watch that Black Mirror episode of Social Media. It'll be a really good one.
Watch that one too.
Girl, we got a lot of catching up to do.
So
I can't even crack. I can't. We are so deep in this. I can't even crack that.
Yeah. We gotta keep it controlled.
So yeah, episode 2. It rounds it out. I think the detective and his son, like you're saying, was really, really important for the theme. And the son, he kept pushing him away. Yeah. He said, like, you don't have time for me. You don't care about me. No, I don't want to go get fucking chips with you. And
that really stood out to me, that their relationship that second time around when I watched it. I was like, oh, you guys are almost the positive lesson that can come out of this.
Take the time.
And
it was so funny too, because like he was also going to Dad to get out of school, and Dad kept saying, I'm the weak one. That's why he's asking me. And, I think that's interesting. Busy parents that work a lot and are married to the job, like, it makes sense that maybe he would go to Dad for that, because Dad would be like, well, I don't spend a lot of time with you, so maybe, you can stay home, right? I'm going to be the good guy because I can't show up in other ways. I think, but then they fade into the distance, right? They're really not a part of the rest of the series at this point.
Yeah, they got their lesson and they were done.
They got their lesson. They have the accomplice. They get the background. They're painting the picture. And then this is where I fell in love with the series, and I had a lot of visceral reactions to the third episode.
That was a hard one.
It was really hard.
And I think at this point they're months into it. Like the first 2 episodes are the day of, and then I think either a couple of weeks or a couple of months in.
Yeah.
But the third episode is like Jamie and the family have been in this for months now.
And he is not in a prison.
No, he's in like a psych ward,
He's in like a psych ward, yeah. So he's in some type. Tom's like, this is going to be a really long episode. Are you filming yourself right now? Okay.
You should be.
You should be, because it's very funny what's happening. So he's in like a psych ward.
Because they don't know where else to place him. It's so unprecedented that this happened.
Yeah.
That we see the cops kind of talking with one another throughout this. They're like, okay, so what happens when we book this kid? Like, where are we taking him?
Where does he go?
Literally.
Literally.
They're on the phone making phone calls. Like, so if we have to put
Right.
this kid someplace, where are we going to? Because we can't put him around adults.